All right, sorry about that. Christmas can be one of those things that naturally there's a tendency for there to be a letdown because of just how long we prepare for it. Seems to get earlier and earlier each year. And hey guys, it gets earlier and earlier each year. You see the decorations, you see the stuff on sale, Target, Walmart, and it there's no possible way for that one day, 2 days, however you celebrate, to live up to all the expectations that are placed on it over the course of 4 to 5 weeks, because the day itself is no longer time-wise. You get to spend a little bit more time with the family, hopefully, because hopefully you're off work, that sort of thing. We certainly make the most of it at my house, but in the end, the 26th is coming no matter what. And Carver uses that here for the mood, that this is in the aftermath. This isn't, about something that can be fixed. It's about something that's already broken and somebody who doesn't quite realize it. She answers the door in her bathrobe. She looks out at him. He's there apologetically. She's like, I can't take it anymore. You tried to burn the house down. I did not. She did. Everybody here was a witness. Can I come in and talk about it? This simple physical action that really speaks to where they are personally in their relationship. She drew the robe together at her throat and moved back inside. It's an action that basically tells them, this is no longer yours. We are not together. It's just a good use of physical action there. She said, I have to go somewhere in an hour. Now, this is the example I'm talking about with that sort of day after Christmas blues. This is just a great description of that. He looked around, the tree blinked on and off. There's a pile of colored tissue paper and shiny boxes at one end of the sofa. A turkey carcass sat on a platter in the center of the dining room table. Leathery remains in a bed of parsley, as if in a horrible nest. A cone of ash filled the fireplace. Empty Shasta cola cans in there too. A trail of smoke stains, another proper noun. Smoke stains rose up the bricks to the mantel where the wood stopped and was scorched black. He turned around, went back in the kitchen, and basically picks a fight with her by asking what time her friend left. He's seen all this sort of part of this. What's going on in his house is due to him. The cone of ash and the burns on the mantelpiece, and we see the remains of the dinner. And the first thing he brings up is her friend. And she's like, if you want to start that, go ahead right now. Pull the chair out, set the kitchen table. He closed his eyes and opened them. Another example of the Carver character doing that. He moved the curtain aside, looked in the backyard. He saw a bicycle without a front wheel standing upside down. He saw weeds growing along the redwood fence. Great imagery there. And again, Carver just lets those images speak rather than try to tell us what they mean. And she brings up Thanksgiving. Do you remember Thanksgiving? I said that was the last holiday you were going to wreck for us, eating bacon and eggs instead of turkey at 10 o'clock at night. Carver said at some point that this story came to him after he'd overheard someone at a telephone booth at a diner on Thanksgiving saying, this is the last holiday you're ever going to ruin for us. It's sort of the spark of this story. She says he's sorry. Pilot light was out again. She was at the stove, gas going under the pan of water. Don't burn yourself, he said. Don't catch yourself on fire. And now we get this inner thought, and we do not get a lot of inner thoughts from these Carver characters in this second collection. So it's important when we do get one to examine it. And this one's a doozy. So she's trying to get the gas going for the stove. He considered her robe catching fire, him jumping up from the table, throwing her down onto the floor and rolling her over and over into the living room where he would cover her with his body. Or should he run to the bedroom for a blanket? Okay, so this is like a protection fantasy that he's created as a way of trying to get back what he's lost and can't get back. And his idea, in this sort of twisted way, is that if she is somehow in physical danger and I save her, then I've redeemed myself in some ways. It's very twisted. There's hints of it in other things we've read this semester. When I teach Faulkner, Sound and the Fury, it's very easy to make references to Quentin and his relationship with his sister. But it's also interesting too that in his fantasy about saving her, about her, him winning her back by her being in physical danger, he imagines himself jumping on her body bravely, and then he's like, well, maybe I'll just put a blanket on her, so he doesn't even go the full length. And he's like, you know, playing out this sort of fantasy in his head. Vera, do you have anything to drink? There's vodka in the freezer. When did you start keeping vodka in the freezer? So he gets out. It's like, you know, you have any juice? There's cran apple juice. So she goes to the bathroom. He drinks the cup of cran apple juice and vodka. He lit a cigarette, studied the big ashtray. Some of them were Vera's brand. Some of them weren't. Even some were lavender color. He got up and dumped it all in the sink. This is like him trying to assert his authority. His sort of role, his role as the man of the house. He's ditching all these cigarettes that he didn't have anything to do with. And he's making even a statement. An ashtray is not even really an ashtray. It's a big dish of stoneware they bought from a potter in a mall in Santa Clara. He rinsed it out, put it back on the table, then he ground out his own cigarette in it. So it's a very interesting action there. That again doesn't get any sort of psychological explanation by going inside his head, but it's him taking this ashtray, dumping it, and then putting his own cigarette in there, leaving his own mark, like he left with the pies or the burn on the chimney. So phone rings, phone call. Here we go. She tells him to answer. When he answers, there's some trickery going on. Like there's something up. So the voice asks for Charlie. Verse says no. Okay. Phone rings again. Charlie. This time he leaves the receiver off the hook. And this is back when you had landlines and they actually had a cord and everything. Vera came back into the kitchen wearing jeans. She sees the receiver and she's like, who was on the phone? Nobody. He asked about the cigarettes. I do. I didn't know you did that. Well, I do. She sat across from him and drank her coffee. They smoked using an ashtray. Here comes our sort of our title. It gets alluded to here, then dropped there at the very end. There were things he wanted to say, grieving things, consoling things, things like that, but things he cannot put words to. I'm smoking 3 packs a day. God almighty, he says. Vera nodded. I didn't come over to hear that. She's like, why did you come over here then? Vera, he said, it's Christmas. That's why I came. It's the day after Christmas. Christmas has come and gone. I don't ever want to see another one. He's living in the past. He can't get over what's happened. She has moved on. He's in the aftermath. What about me? What do you think I look forward to the holidays? Phone rings again. It's like, is somebody wanting Charlie? She takes the phone. She says she'll take it in the bedroom. He takes the receiver. She leaves the kitchen. He held the receiver to his ear and listened. He heard nothing. Then our man cleared his throat. Vera picked up the other phone. She shouted, okay, Bert, I have it now. So she's answered the other line. Now we get this paragraph, and this certainly is a paragraph that seemed menacing. If this would have been the first Carver story you would have read, you may have thought something diabolical was going to happen here. There are moments of violence in Carver stories. In fact, in that second collection, you might look at a story called "Tell the Women We're Going." That certainly ends with a flourish of violence. But here, puts down the receiver, stood looking at it. He opened the silverware drawer, pushed things around. So he's looking for something. He opened another door, looks in the sink. Then he looks at the table, and we see the carving knife for the turkey. So he's looking for a knife. Like, why is he looking for a knife? Wipes the blade, goes to the phone, and cuts the cord. Now, what this does is it disconnects the phone call. For those of you who've never had a landline with a cord, it disconnects the phone call. Even though the phone's being talked to in the other room, that disconnects the call overall. So she comes in, she's like, the phone went dead. Did you do anything to the telephone? And she sees the phone, and the cord's been cut. She picks it up from the counter. Son of a bitch, out, where you belong. She's shaking the phone. She slams it down. The phone made a ding when she banged it on the counter. There was the phone call earlier, but that ding seems to be Carver nodding to his own motifs a little bit there. I'm going to go next door and call the police. If you don't get out of here now. He picked up the ashtray. He's getting ready to throw it. He doesn't. He goes to the patio. He was not certain, but he thought he'd proved something. Of course, we know he hasn't, but he thinks he has. This is the sort of a false epiphany that you get from a Carver character. He hoped he had made something clear. The thing was, they had to have a serious talk soon. There were things that needed talking about, important things that needed to be discussed. They'd need to talk again, maybe after the holidays were over. and things got back to normal. He'd tell her the goddamn ashtray was a goddamn dish, for example. He stepped around the pie in the driveway. Pie in the driveway is great. Vera never addresses it. There's other stuff to address. He doesn't address it, and he just sort of avoids it in the driveway. So in some that pie is being used very well too as sort of a metaphor for this mess that doesn't seem to be being addressed. It's a story with talk in the title, serious talk. It's like Things They Carried had Speaking of Courage. Speaking was in the title, and it's about a character who had problems telling anybody anything. Here we have serious talk in the title, and nothing about this talk was serious or helpful, or can be even at this point. He stepped around the pie in the driveway, got back in his car, started the car, put it in reverse. It's hard managing until he put the ashtray down. So he doesn't even realize he's still holding onto the ashtray. So it's always a little bit more fun to teach this one in the fall because it coincides with Thanksgiving. I call it the Carver holiday story. But nevertheless, I think Gazebo and Serious Talk are really, really good examples of middle Carver, and several other examples in the book that you have. I'd recommend Viewfinder. I'd recommend What We Talk About When We Talk About Love, although it is a little denser than the others. I'd recommend After the Denim. The Third Thing That Killed My Father Off is very good. And then there's some shorts. Popular Mechanics is jarring, and it's maybe a page long. But hey, Bucky, shutting my book. But what we're going to do next, and like I said, I'm going to be gone at a funeral for a couple days, which is why you're getting sort of an overload of stories here. But we're going to look at The Bath next from the middle collection, and then from the last collection, we're going to look at A Small Good Thing and a couple other stories after that. But it's very, very important that when you sit down to read these, that you give yourself enough time to read them both back to back. And you need to read them in this order. You need to read The Bath first. It was published first. It was published in his middle collection, which is his darkest collection. And then A Small Good Thing second, which was published in his last collection, which is actually his most humanistic work. So it's important that you read them in that order, though, just because that's how they were presented. That's how the public got them, because there's some other stuff going on with those stories, and you'll pick up on a little bit of it, but it's just very, very important. And I should say this: the next lecture, it will address both The Bath and A Small Good Thing at the same time. It'll be a simultaneous discussion of both stories, so you'll need to have them both read before you watch the lecture. All right? Thanks a lot.